to Berlin. This matchup between H2K and Roccat. Odoamne giving us a smile, giving us a glare, as well as Phaxi in a slow-mo. Go ahead on stage. H2K versus Roccat. H2K, before Rift Rivals, they played versus Misfits and they pulled off a gigantic comeback. 8,000 gold behind, but they managed to bring it back. And actually, in both games versus Misfits, they played from behind. And I want to be careful here because we don't want to take anything away.
Sure. From
the wins of H2K, but we do kind of want to criticize the way they did it, and I think that's also an important thing, looking at our top teams a bit different after Rift Rivals. So 2 comeback wins, why is that not what usually we expect from H2K?
Normally we expect an H2K that pride themselves on early game strategy and tower pushing, not giving away objectives, but H2K in this series lost 3 early skirmishes in game 1 back-to-back, and that meant they were fighting a little bit more and not as well as they previously had done. It's fortunate for H2K, however, that Super Odoamne came through, turning it back in their favor, especially in that game 2, because he really carried hard. On that Camille, we've seen him do this, and it was the quadra kill that really set up H2K.
As you look at the goal difference at that point in the game, it was crunch time, and Camille there, or Odoamne rather, just absolutely destroying Misfits, and that was an absolute turning point.
Yeah, the quadra kill into just insane side lane presence out of Odoamne was just too much for Misfits to deal with. They were a little bit inactive on the map, and H2K would eventually take the win for themselves.
And it's good that you say it there. Obviously, you cannot always rely on something like this to happen, because it is extraordinary that in that moment you get a quadra kill. And you were talking about H2K and how we like to see them play. If we look at what they've traditionally been good at in the early game over the weeks, they have lost a bit of control in the early game. They have given up gradually more towers at 15 minutes over the last couple of weeks. Jankos' kills plus assists in the early game have gone down gradually. So how much is that a change in style, and how much do you want to see a change in style if your previous style had been winning all the games?
Well, I think it might be some sense of complacency that we saw crop into the other teams at the top of the table as well. The jungle activity is specifically something I want to see H2K improve upon, because the NA junglers exposed the EU junglers. No early game activity was successful for Europe, and Jankos is a jungler that we know can play an early game style. Previously, First Blood King, we know he can get it done. I really want to see it in this series.
We're being extra harsh on H2K because they are #1 in Group B. They had a week to recover during Rift Rivals and to, well, go to the water park and relax at least. And that combined with scrims and good practice should make us see a rejuvenated H2K this week. And they're up versus Roccat in their first match. Roccat, I don't really know what to make of them. We've seen a bit of improvement, but then in week 5, they lost to Vitality 0-2 and pretty heavily lost that matchup. So where are they at right now?
Well, the improvement we saw from Roccat was basically them being reliant on individual picks, and that's why we're seeing teams now do well against Roccat, is once you ban out the Na, the Kha'Zix, the Rakan, these 3 picks have done so well for Roccat that without them, Roccat seemed to flounder, and realistically, this should be an H2K favored matchup. That's maybe why we're being overly critical, because H2K coming in should be easy favorites here.
That is absolutely the case. Who on Roccat can turn the tides? Who can step up? Or is it all relying on, if they don't get that picks, it should pretty much be GG?
With a good draft that maybe can go to the late game, Betsy, whether it's a Vladimir or a Kassadin, these later game picks that we have seen work out for Roccat, that's the type of thing they could play around, but you're going up against Febiven. You're likely to be split pushed by Odoamne for the entire game, with Jankos supporting him up there in the top side. I don't think that that's a very big window for Roccat to be able to come back in.
We would like to see H2K put up a strong performance and maybe see Roccat bringing it home, because they are looking to strike back after that loss versus Vitality in week 5. Let's leave it to the casters for game number 1.
Thank you very much, Sjokz and Stress. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Trevor Quickshot Henry, joined here at the castle by Mon Deficio Lunga. And let's take a look at the lineup starting on the blue side of the Rift with H2K. They had side selection for game number 1. And no surprise, they're going for first pick options. Let's start with the superhero Camille from last week. It is Odoamne, the former First Blood King. Jankos still waking up after 6 weeks of gameplay. Febiven, Nuclear, and of course their support Chei.
Yeah, Jankos' face when he just wakes up looks kind of scary, the way he's looking at the camera at least. And he's
only when he wakes up?
Apparently, according to that one. I like it.
On the other side of the Rift is their opponents for today. It is Roccat, of course, with Phaxi in the top lane. Pridestalker, the replacement for Summer in the jungle. Betsy trying to get his late game groove on, and of course their duo, Harjan and Wadid, with Coach Grabs. Roccat, they just saw their opponent #4 team in Vitality pick up a win. They're looking for an upset win against H2K because the expectation is they're the underdogs today.
I mean, it's fair to say that Roccat lately is kind of trending downwards, especially after the Vitality series where they got 2-0. You don't really want to see that when it's the bottom teams fighting each other. However, though, if you are Roccat, like, you have that safety net under you called NIP, because they will make sure that they stay actually on you and keep you above them so far in the standings, because they obviously lost that game against Vitality.
I like that. The safety net of Ninjas in Pajamas. Interestingly, though, Deficio, Roccat at 2 series wins and 4 losses are just behind G2 at 3 series wins and 3 losses. So if Roccat can pick up some surprise victories here, G2 are not that far away.
And let's be fair, judging from the recent H2K games, it's not like they've been playing perfect League of Legends. There has definitely been mistakes and things you could exploit. So Roccat, in the past, they've actually done well against some of these top teams. I'm definitely not counting them out in this one. And it looks like Grabs and Roccat, they agree with me when I say Ashe is a thing to prioritize. They're just banned away from Nuclear.
Yeah, apparently I have to wear an Ashe cosplay for you. That's something
I think you look
the
good.
internet was trying to tell me.
You are going to the gym, Trevor. I think you can pull it off.
I'll try my best, just for you, Deficio. But looking at picks and bans, Zach is the champion. Then screaming, thank you for that one. And it's available. First pick worthy here for Jankos has to be.
Yeah, Zach definitely is still first pick worthy, and I think every single team agrees. Roccat obviously knows that Zach will be picked, and they should have a counter prepared, otherwise this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We do see the Gragas, which is one of the counters to him, and I'll talk about that a little bit in-game, once we maybe see the body slam interrupting a few jumps here and there. I think actually it's okay to try and do what Roccat is doing. I'm just never a fan of giving away Zach. I almost rather give away Lise to Jankos, which he probably would first pick anyway, right?
Yeah, that's the truth. Definitely a champion he's super comfortable on. And Deficio, taking a look at the rest of this, it is a Kog'Maw locked in here. Could be flex, technically.
No, it's AD carry. It's going to be AD carry. Trust me, LCK, after they play against LBL Rift Rivals, they're on that hype train right now. I've seen it first picked in the LCK. I've seen it picked in most of the games, especially whenever we saw that KT series, where Def got to play it a few times. It's a strong pick. Heimerdinger, some people are talking about him. I know it's a hover, but it's not that bad of a hover right now. Like, you know, we can rate hovers.
Into what?
How likely is it that it gets picked? A melee top lane champion, if you pick Heimerdinger against that, you auto-win the lane.
Oh, I can't wait. Oh, I'd love to see someone raise their dongers on the LCS stage.
I'm just saying, man, after we did change him a little bit, there's a chance.
Well, go jump onto Twitter and tweet at all of your favorite LCS teams and players that they have to raise their dongers. The Alistar is unchained in combination with Hyanen's Kalista, and that is a terrifying duo lane.
Yeah, is this LCK we're watching right now? Because a lot of these picks have been showing up more and more. Also, the Alistar, Kalista. Also, the level is basically the same when it's an H2K Roccat series.
Deficio, both LCK and EU LCS lost at Rift Rivals.
It's true.
We are on the same level. Team Solo Mid got more wins at Rift Rivals than LCK did.
And we've had quite a few fiestas in the LCK the last 2 days. We might get another one here. Obviously, we are hopefully, as people realize, joking a little bit regarding the actual level of Roccat and H2K. But point is, Alistar kind of making his way back, especially with Kalista specifically, because obviously, again, her ulti does so well with melee champions, and because a lot of tank supports are being picked. So you just pick Alistar against them, you don't get punished as hard in the laning phase, and you can actually be useful.
Oh, I'm so happy with those Doran shield changes and the meta shifting away.
Diversity. It gave diversity.
Away from those range pokes. Phase 2, Deficio, top lane has been hit by the hammer. Gnar, Fiora, Camille removed from the pool. Lucian as well taken out. And this allows Phaxi to lock in his Renekton, seeing as though he lost his arguably most successful champion in Gnar.
So obviously at Rift Rivals, we will see Kled being picked right now against the Renekton, and you just kind of try and survive the laning phase and be useful after. I don't think Kled is going to make his way in as a really high priority top laner in Europe. Jarvan is still a choice you can take against Renekton. Just be like, okay, I'm just going to try and survive lane. That is exactly what Odoamne is doing. Good man right there. And then you, of course, add value outside of the laning phase. Mid lane, Syndra, Corki, the very typical blind picks. They are both available at the moment, so it's kind of just up to the specific player. What do you prefer? Do you want stronger laning phase? Go Syndra. Do you want better scaling? Go Corki. Orianna is also a choice, but I think the other two are just above her.
Well, what about the next question? Which does Prolly want to put you on? Because we've heard him talk
That's fair.
a lot about different types of champions. It's going to be the Syndra, so laning phase is somewhat of the priority. Kog'Maw will give you some scaling, and Corki is locked in for Betsy. So let's take a look at these two team compositions. A good mixture of actually scaling, sort of engage, team comp, team fight as well.
I think both comps are fairly strong here. I think Rockets, though, is slightly harder to execute. Obviously, you got to survive the Alistar laning phase, and you want to really play around Renekton in the early game, but you have a Gragas jungle, so it's not as easy as compared to, let's say, an Elise or Rek'Sai. And also scaling-wise, while Corki, of course, with fantastic scaling, you have to deal with Braum, Zac, Jarvan in the late game. Standing in front of the Corki, and then obviously you have Nuclear just sitting behind, just hammering away. So Roccat right now, I feel like really needs to show they can actually play around this Renekton lane and then get Alistar as well out of lane and just force fights in the mid game with Alistar. Wadid, it's a style he likes to play. This is the game for him to do it.
Oh, very excited to see Wadid on this Alistar. First time this split. And when you look at his other champions, his most played Thresh, Rakan, for example, really likes to be that initiator on the front line. He's definitely one of the spearheads for Team Roccat. And I'm also excited to see how Pridestalker continues to grow. Last week, he had some of his best early game performances. Then Roccat started to struggle a little bit late game, so that's where they can't afford to have that problem.
And this is really a new pick for Pridestalker. We normally mainly see him on things like Kha'Zix and, of course, that Warwick he's tried to play a few times. Like, now he's on a tank. He doesn't need to be super active early game. He can actually just farm and then be strong in team fights. Not been the Pridestalker style, and that is definitely something to track in game.
All right, we will keep our eyes on, and I'm going to ask you to review it, Deficio. It's H2K and Roccat load up for game number 1 here in week 6 of the EU LCS.
And I can say already, Trevor, Pridestalker starting off really poorly here. He did not go Scuba Gragas. Instead, he's going with a weak skin. And I think that is almost unacceptable at this level. This is LCS. Come on.
We'll find out how well Pridestalker can handle the Esquire Gragas. A classier, a more refined version. And a little tidbit that I was just fed by our stats team, Deficio. It was a Kalista.
Oh, that's a good skin.
It was a Kalista-Alistar combination with more cowbell that broke G2's win streak at the beginning of spring.
Very true.
That's what turned it around. That's what started Roccat on that 6 series win.
And that's, you know, as we just talked about here, Wadid. Wadid is the man to always engage.
Sorry, Deficio, I think that point you just made needs more cowbell.
All right, let's see it again. Come on. You know, this level 1 is specifically made for this. Wadid doesn't have to move. He can just sit there and slam that cowbell.
Oh, Berlin, I love that you're clapping to the cowbell.
You want to know a funny story? In primary school, we had music classes, and I was so bad at it that every time we had to set up, like, who's playing the drums, who's playing the guitar, and all that kind of stuff, they always put me in the cowbell to just hold the rhythm, and I had to do, like, dook, 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 stuff like that. And I never played anything else other than, like, once when I was put on guitar, and they forgot to put on the sound, and there was actually no sound coming from it.
That
it
was fantastic. So, Deficio,
old school.
Former professional cowbell player from high school. Can really rate Wadid's performance. Yes! Oh, this is going to be a good mini game. I'm looking forward to this.
He's such a troll. He's such a troll. He's the man to do it, man. Anyway, Trevor. Chei's trying to, you know, join in, but he's not as successful. Still, though, Nuclear, he's on a hyper carry. I think Nuclear and Chei is a great bot lane at just kind of sitting and farming and trying to go even in lanes. Often do not really fall too far behind, unless you get camped by Fnatic. That has been kind of the kryptonite of Nuclear and Chei. And then obviously, positioning-wise, Nuclear right now should be good enough to execute this in the late game.
I want to watch that. And the man who's going to try to disrupt that, Pridestalker,
he's
with
one
those
of them.
flash body slams at the barrels. We touched him picks and bans, how Pridestalker had one of his best early game performances. You can see kills plus assists of 15 at 3, 100% kill participation, gold leads. And he did that with a decent jungle proximity as well, not spending too much time.
It was one of the first times we saw Roccat win the early game. Now, during the split, they've been fine in the mid to late game, but then weak in the early game, and that was kind of an issue for them. Funny enough, when they actually won that early game last week, or 2 weeks ago, they forgot how to play late game. Anyway, mid lane.
All right, body slam flash, not going to find the target. Febiven holding on until the very last second, and that lost an exhaust and a flash from Roccat.
So that's, again, one of the fun things about this little matchup between Roccat and H2K is H2K 2 weeks ago. Don't worry, it's just a little trade. 2 weeks ago, H2K forgot how to play the early game. They forgot how to play the early game, Trevor. They fell really far behind. They looked terrible. Febiven getting a stun onto Betsy. Meanwhile, Roccat forgot how to play late game. So the question is, which team will have improved the aspect they sucked at 2 weeks ago? Is it Roccat late game? Is it H2K early game?
Well, we're going to find out because we've got a lot of game to play through as Jankos is already going on a little bit of an invade. Gets himself some vision down, spots out Pridestalker clearing the Grom.
Says hello, jumps away.
Yeah, easily escapes. Those double sentinels, by the way, from Harjan, flying Kog'Maw line up through the river. That'll help them out a little bit. The sentinel against the Zac, especially with the long-range engage.
This is such a boring bot lane because, again, they're not really looking to do a whole lot on the side of H2K. They just want to scale. And on the side of Roccat, well, you have an Alistar, so you're not really playing to win the lane. You also just want to get out of the laning phase. Top lane might be more action, but no junglers are nearby, and it's just Phaxi and Odoamne. I was going to say spanking each other, but hitting each other.
Not yet. There's more damage here.
It might happen.
I hope that it does. I always do. Odoamne, talking about spanking. Last week, absolutely spanked Misfits.
It was 2 weeks ago, Trevor.
2 weeks,
I just made that mistake twice.
The last week of EU LCS.
Yeah, there you go.
You see the stats on screen as Camille, 12-3-2. Odoamne just decided, you know what? I'm going to win this game now. And he's under some pressure from Phaxi. And the reason that's like so impressive and that I loved watching that series against Misfits, H2K proved just how good of a team they were. They defended for 50 minutes against Misfits, okay? They were down 4,000 gold at 30 minutes. They were only down 2,000 at the end, and they won with a gold deficit.
Trevor top lane.
Oh, my story's gonna get interrupted. Maybe not. Odoamne wants to spank Phaxi and he survives.
Oh, Jankos, he's on his way. So is Febiven. Oh, let's see. Recall coming in from Phaxi. Jankos finds the fat man.
All right, stretching strike. Is there a second target? Yes.
Here's Febi.
Gonna be in the range. Febi throws down. First blood picked up by the First Blood King.
Oh, Roccat. They went all in for that kill up in top lane. You need to just time the stun from Renekton with then the body slam from Gragas right there, but Odoamne, he managed to just jump right out of it. So to your story, Trevor, about the great comeback of H2K, I think it is still worth highlighting maybe that the great comeback only really happened because they were so bad in the early game. They fell so far down, like the bottom one, game 2, at 20 minutes, down 8,000 gold. I said to Prolly after, that should be impossible. He's like, yeah, I agree. We are really bad in the early game. And he also told me, we're working on it. That's the classic European line.
It is indeed.
We're working on it. We're learning from our failures. We're going to get stronger.
Well, we'll find out in this game already, 1,000 up, punishing Rockat's decision to invade. But while I was trying to set that story up with a little bit more intensity than maybe it deserved, it is actually a testament for a team like H2K who have a history of falling apart and struggling to be able to dig deep and bounce back. Jankos has stood right on top of a ward there. And I want to see more growth from H2K. They've got the same 5 players as the spring split. Yes, they had a bad playoff run in spring, which has colored a lot of the information.
Oh, what a beast.
Come on, Wadid, you just need some cowbell to make that BM even better.
That was actually pretty annoying for Febiven right there. Oh, he knows, he knows. Every time. So Febi actually just got delayed right there on his recall, meaning Betsy is returned to lane much earlier. We'll obviously get to just push the wave. Meanwhile, though, we got to look at Alistar, and he's level 6. That is the key one. They get a few buffs.
Ooh, look at the damage, though. Wadid gets stunned up, and Nuclear with the Bio-Arcane Barrage just keeps forcing him back.
So we also got to look at Nuclear, obviously, because when you get 3 ranks in your W, you actually start really hurting in lane, and you can really start being a threat. And that's kind of the thing. H2K is level 6. Is pretty strong if they want to play around bottom side, but so is the Alistar level 6 for setting up these tower dives. So both teams actually have a way of playing on the bottom side with these 2 AD carries. I think Kalista is the kind of AD carry who needs to snowball a little bit to be super useful compared to, of course, Nuclear, who just wants to farm. Yeah, farm, scale, and just get a few items under your belt. I definitely prefer Jankos in tower dives with that passive and the ability to reset aggro like multiple times. Who's overpowered, so it also helps. Even though Gragas actually also has kind of moved his way up. I know some teams are putting him as an S-tier jungler at the moment just because in a lot of games, especially like look in the LCS, you have a lot of comeback
potential.
openings. Yeah, a lot of potentials. Like, even if you fall down 3, 4, 5K gold.
Hey, what about 8,000 gold?
Maybe 8,000 gold. Most of the time, the enemy team will give you a few chances to make that big engage as a Gragas, and we obviously know how powerful that is, and you might actually get your team back in the game. So, in the EU LCS specifically, falling behind in the early game has not always been a bad thing.
Yeah.
When you play against North American Rift rivals, falling behind in the early game is pretty bad.
Well, this is where we're going to see the European teams learning, right? Because H2K, Roccat, Vitality earlier today, they all had that extra week of scrims and time to train and practice. And we'll see what Vitality can do against Fnatic on Saturday. Very excited to see that matchup and see whether or not Vitality can make a mid to late season run for third. Because Roccat could be doing very much the same. We're still in cross-group play.
Oh, look at him, he's mid lane.
Remember, tower dive is very possible here. Stretching strike is Valked away from. Take a quick look up at the top lane. Phaxi slices in, calls the meek and dices out.
Oh, Betsy, he needs a blast code.
What a good stun. Flash forward, blast code. This is it! Betsy, you can't do that! Unleash power comes out and Jankos gets his second.
We gotta replay that in slow motion when he steps outside of the blast cone range. That is a little bit of a shame for Betsy just to bring that one back from the last H2K game. And Pridestalker finds Jankos. They're just gonna say hello in here. Pridestalker doesn't actually want to fight this because Febi is still around, and he will have to just walk away. Meanwhile, though, bot lane's got level 6. Let's see, it starts with the gank, so now Betsy's under pressure. You know, he loses focus because he's trying to communicate what's happening, and then look at this, guys, look at this. Walks in, slow-mo, slow-mo.
Go, go!
No! To be fair, they've only added a year ago, so maybe he didn't really know the range.
Oh, that's gotta hurt. Get that cowbell up. Ding, 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 shame, shame, shame. That's definitely what that one feels like. So H2K get their second kill. It goes to Jankos. He not only got first blood, something he's not actually done a whole lot in recent splits.
Doesn't matter, still the first blood king.
And he's on Zac. So if there was a champion that you didn't want to get fed, with Syndra Hulk already, on a patch that favors that item as action. Roccat, they've got this uphill battle ahead of themselves. How do they bounce back, or how do H2K use this lead further, Deficio?
Well, that's kind of the problem with the Roccat comp that we talked about, was just how, like, they're kind of lacking a big lane to play around. I think bot lane with Alistar level 6, if he can roam, because right now they're losing mid.
All right, there is no flash for Betsy. Body slam comes out, barrel only knocks Febi sideways. Betsy doesn't really know where he's going, and the Hex Drinker has bought some time. Febiven gets his first kill.
Didn't Betsy have package just before he got stunned? If he had been a little bit faster, could maybe have made it out.
Just wasn't the most impressive package, unfortunately.
Very true.
Betsy goes down for the second time.
That one belongs to Febiven, we know that.
Yes,
so
exactly.
He's going straight mid lane, getting that tower. So right now, if you're Roccat, again, like, it was either you play around the Alistar specifically on level 6, but that is very difficult against Braum. So you need the Alistar to get him out of the lane, so you can like start going mid lane, group up with your jungler, maybe make a play on this Syndra in the mid lane who can't really escape these, you know, very mobile champions. Instead, though, it's Jankos just going mid over and over, and Betsy's now died 2 times, where he probably could have avoided both of them.
Unfortunately not. You look at the mini.
So he has packets right now, and when you see this stun right there, you could literally just quickly packaged out of it, and then you would have been okay.
Well, there was the package, I believe.
I think it just expired, no?
Well, it could have expired, yeah. I thought I heard the sound effect. Either way,
yeah, because it's top lane.
Work out. All right, stretching strike. That's going to hold Phaxi in place. Gonna bounce backwards. Phaxi slices and dices, flashes out of the Cataclysm. Thanks to Dominus, he survives. A lot of pressure from Jankos. He seems to be everywhere on the map for H2K.
Yeah, he really enjoys this game right now. He has some lanes he can gank for, CC in the mid lane, CC bot, CC top. And he's also then able to actually now get the kills for his team. You could say he's bad to the bone, but right now he's just 2-0-1, and that's also good enough.
It is indeed. He's got no bones on Zac anyway, so I'm not going to use that this game.
That's fair.
But Deficio, pick some bans you'd mentioned for Roccat. They really wanted to try get ahead early, scaling, while they have some in Corki, not the greatest.
No, I mean, Corki in itself is nice, but there's a lot of tanks.
Yeah.
There's also a Braum shield, and you are trying to auto-attack in the late game.
And also, Kalista's not the greatest at killing tanks.
Why are we wooing?
I don't really know. They're just having a lot of fun today, the audience. The cowbell got everybody riled up.
It did.
Yeah. Herding the fans here in Berlin. I quite like that, actually.
It's moo.
Well, we'll find out whether or not Wadid will encourage any mooing. Knocks the Gromp over.
I mean, that is insane right there.
That was pretty good mechanics.
Yeah, use all your abilities and getting Gromp while you're losing blue buff because your team is pretty far behind already. I guess that's the one thing Roccat is going for them right now, because mid lane we see another fight.
All right, let's see whether or not Odoamne goes down. Febiven's coming in. He's jumping onto Betsy. Odo and Pridestalker trading back and forth, but H2K reinforcements coming in from the mid lane.
Chei.
A stretching strike delivers Jankos to the jungle, but Roccat are able to escape. A flash from Pridestalker, and Roccat secure their first tower at 14 minutes.
All right, so finally Roccat managed to escape one of the ganks here from Jankos. Phaxi gets his top lane tower, and if you are Roccat right now, obviously, as I said earlier, you really want to enable this Alistar. Moby boots rush and everything. You need to start getting him roaming. If he can't get out of this bot lane on his own, then maybe put Corki bot lane, put this Kalista mid, and then actually try and set Wadid up for success.
Such a difficult situation. If you look at the minimap, the amount of vision that H2K have set up in Rocket's right-hand quadrant, there is nothing that Roccat can do without H2K seeing it.
Yeah, now that we had Rift Rivals and we saw the North American way of playing, which was very focused on the mid lane ganks, get the mid laner ahead and then use that to snowball the other lanes. Look at what H2K has been doing this game. Jankos has been around the mid lane multiple times, ganking for Febiven, who picked a very strong laning mid laner. He didn't go Corki for the scaling, he went Syndra for the strong laning phase, and then they play around it. So they got early mid lane tower, and this has made it very hard for Roccat now to actually play around the map, because Syndra can always move with Jankos, go bot lane, go top lane. Makes it hard for Roccat to get vision in the river, instead of gank up maybe in a side lane, knowing that people will appear behind them. And this is just H2K kind of picking up a little bit from what we saw there at Rift Rivals with the mid lane focus.
Deficio, I think I'm hearing some optimism here. Wadid with some decent interrupts, gonna need to use his ultimate. Fate's Call comes out from Harjan as well, buys a couple extra seconds. Wadid forced to flash over the wall, but you can't escape. The Cataclysm from Odo. He shuts him down. That's 5 kills to H2K. Underneath the tower, Phaxi's now running for his life, and Betsy, by the way, has not left mid lane. Nuclear gets on the board with his first kill at 6-0 H2K.
And it's suddenly too easy for H2K, because they can take a Drake, they can then go to whichever lane they want to with every single member, and Roccat right now, they can't respond because they're all getting pushed in their lanes. They just have to sit back, wait for a play to happen, try to maybe react, but you're not really going to gain anything from that. Either you run away or you die.
Deficio, in the last week of EU LCS, I remember you speaking quite strongly about belief in H2K. And I'm hearing that optimism, that excitement about plays like this.
I mean, I always get a little bit hyped with H2K when I see stuff like this, when I see Jankos execute early ganks, when I see Febiven.
And the vision, the control wards.
I mean, that's always a bonus. We got to give that credit to H2K. They're always good with the vision, no matter if they lose or if they win. But this was just a very well executed play on the bottom side. All the correct members also getting the kills right there. One for Nuclear, some for Febiven. Right now, if you're H2K, you have a strong AD carry, you have a super strong mid-jungle setup.
Yes.
And that is enough, actually, now to start winning this game.
100% kill participation for both Jankos and Febiven. H2K, currently the #1 team in Group B. Taking a look at some of the standings very quickly in Group B, because we have talked about that a little bit. H2K quite comfortable, looking forward. But if you look at Roccat, they're 2 and 4, G2 3 and 3. And Roccat, as we've mentioned, they are within touching distance, and G2 is very weak right now.
Exactly, like we have not really seen anything from G2 Esports all summer split. They play Splice tomorrow, which is not an easy matchup by any means. So if Roccat can secure a win here, they tie, of course, or well, they look to tie G2 if G2 lose tomorrow. And then the race for that playoff spot is still on. It would be almost insane to imagine G2 not making playoffs.
Let's see what happens. That is a possibility. Roccat throw everything at Odoamne, and he flags and drags and brags about how easy it was to escape.
Are they chasing? No. Mid lane though, Jankos Febiven holding hands again. Really, really focused on this mid lane synergy.
Yeah,
has been paying off.
Working out indeed. I mean, when you've got a Zac and Syndra, you may as well, right? Rift Herald's gonna get summoned. Jankos is going to unleash the charge into the mid-inner.
Oh, and Nuclear could actually just start hitting that top lane tower, but he wants to join his team in mid lane. Betsy is trying to sneak in behind H2K.
Betsy's deciding to play catch with every single ball that Febiven throws out. Stunned up multiple times in a row. Behind in CS, H2K are now 4 towers to 2. And the Herald gets another charge off onto the inhibitor turret. By the way, look at the minimap. So Nuclear had just shoved top wave in, roamed down to middle to support his team.
I should have stayed top, but that's fine.
Now Odo is shoving in bottom lane. Yes, you could have done a little more, but everything is in control of H2K here, Deficio.
I'll start with the early game, Trevor. Good gangs from Jankos, snowballs the team, and Rocket's composition here. As we said, it's hard to play around the Renekton lane when you don't have a jungler who really wants to focus on early ganks. We saw that failed tower dive where Odoamne actually outplayed Rocket's 2v2, or so 2v1 on the top side. And that kind of already set them behind a little bit. Then mid lane dies as it sets them further behind.
Yeah.
And we already said bot lane would be a farm lane. That was just kind of waiting for the rest of H2K to then show up and make something. So Rocket right now, just due to the early aggression from Jankos, have fallen almost too far behind to do a whole lot.
Yeah, 6,000 gold as we approach 20 minutes. Looking at some of the big item completions. 2 items already completed for Febi and Nuclear. Betsy hasn't even got his Trinity Force yet. He went for that Hex Drinker and Merc Treads beforehand. That's how much pressure he was under. Thanks to Jankos, thanks to Febi. That just puts a lot of challenges on them. So now Harjan and Wadid, they're going to get ganked. Chei, Jankos making their way up. Odoamne is going to teleport as well. Harjan has already flashed. There goes the Fate's Call, buy some time. But the Cataclysm comes down despite some knockups. Roccat, they're still locked inside. Already lost Harjan, now Wadid tries to sidestep and dodge the stretching strikes, but there's just so much crowd control. H2K pick up 2, and what is next on their list?
Well, it's not only the control, it's also just the reaction time from H2K. Whenever they see Rocket do anything, they react instantly. I love the setup, put the ward down, Odoamne joins, and it's just an easy win. Let's see what happens here.
All right, Roccat looking for their first kill of the game. Not going to find it yet. Dominus thrown down by Phaxi. He's forced to run away. A 2-man stun from Febi gives him another kill. Make that a double as Roccat get their 10th.
Well, I guess now they can look at Baron. They wanted a few more kills before they did it. Febiven is still full HP. He's on top side. Actually, never mind, rest of H2K playing it safe. Don't want to risk it. Yeah, fair enough with Jarvan and Wadid already respawning. Also, you can get that juicy Cloud Drake.
Dude, I'm so glad you said that. And I'm actually really thankful for H2K. Because do you know how many Cloud Drakes Rocket have secured all split long, Deficio?
I'm going to say, when you put it up like that, I'm going to say 0.
In 16 games, Rocket have got no Cloud Drakes.
Ah, there we go.
The true EU team. We'll carry on with that. As you can see, Harjan and Wadid just really just outnumbered.
And every single fight so far, if you look at the minimap during the replays, you will notice that 1 or 2 Rocket guys are not even nearby. There's no way for them to actually get up to join the fight in time because they just push so far down on the map. And then you almost have to start overextending to get something back, but you just get punished by a team that is quick on the trigger in this one. Another follow-up fight, obviously Rocket losing a lot of members early. Febiven joins in. Massive CC chain from him and Jankos, and they win the fight.
And you know, even though Ashe was banned, that long-range engage that you get
you
so
gave him
excited
Zac
for, right? But that's the next thing. Zac, Jarvan, and Syndra, all who can engage from 1 to 2 screens away.
I feel like you should have given Elise over, not the Zac. Because at least with the Elise, if you can just play a bit safe in the early game, you can avoid some of her ganks, and then she gets easier to deal with.
Yeah.
Jankos has just shown like an almost perfect Zac performance. 100% kill participation still together with Febiven. Non-stop ganking. He's level 12 at the moment as well. I mean, this Zac is just so strong, and I get what Rocket tried to do. Give 1 pick, get 2 in return. It backfired.
After looking at last week's EU jungler's performance and looking at Jankos, there is some hope in the pool. Now, admittedly, he's on Zac. You have to take that with a pinch of salt, of course.
See, regarding that point as well, with the NA junglers outperform the EU junglers, it's so important to remember that jungling is very much a team game.
Yep.
And if your team is actually playing around the jungler specifically, setting him up for success, it's much easier to look great, which is what the NA teams did so well. Jankos, he's finding Pridestalker.
He is indeed. Stretching strike finds 1. Won't find the second, but a stun on the back end. Pridestalker not going to be the victim of unleashed power from Febiven. He's able to escape. But look at the vision again. Control wards all throughout Rockat's jungle, and H2K can peel back for Baron whenever they want.
They should just start the Baron, because worst case you get Phaxi's flash. Oh, he just one-shot it.
Oh, the gameplay button exists. Febiven shares his gameplay with Jarvan, and actually that's super scumbag, because now Jankos no longer has 100% kill participation. That is not
Febiven still has 100% kill participation.
Yeah, but that's not team play, Deficio.
I don't know, it's classic EU mid lane greed. They want it all. They don't want to play supportive champions. They always want to be the carries.
Void Staff, Morella, Nomicon, Luden's Echo, 23 minutes in. Actually, what is the gold difference between mid laners right now? 13,000 gold for Febiven. And drumroll, please, how much gold do you think Betsy has? 13,000.
Remember, I can only do the cowbell.
Well, there you go. 8,000. So, of Rockat's 11,000 gold deficit, just under half of that is in Febiven's back pockets.
And it appears, Trevor, that Roccat didn't continue the trend of playing well in the early game like we saw in week 5. Obviously, this time around with Pridestalker on Gragas, not the same kind of early impact we've seen on other picks from him.
As expected as well.
Fair. Bot lane, when you draft the Alistar, again, you want to get out of laning phase with it. So Roccat could really only in the early game play around the top lane. They tried, they failed. And that's why H2K are now taking the mid inhib.
That's so easy. Look at the minimap. Roccat have no one to contest. Hyunen's in the top lane. Wadid's in the mid lane. Phaxi's under pressure here from Odoamne and minions. Cataclysm goes down. The flash comes out, and one more strike from Odo. 2-0-6. It's a 12,000 gold difference. And you know what?
Wadid is still behind him, by the way.
If this is the peak level of H2K, this is where the belief, the faith, the excitement comes in. Yes, it is against the number 4 team in a group, of course, right? But this is just beautiful play.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
It is clean early game. It's what we want to see from some of these European teams. And H2K, they're showing it. It all started around the mid lane with Jankos and Febiven. They're going with these Nexus turrets. Wadid is still behind. H2K, he's now on his way back after he stopped and started recalling a few times. He's going for the surprise gank in his own base.
I figured it out. I think Wadid is trying to busk for gold. He's playing the cowbell to Summoner's Rift when there's no one there to help him out. Nuclear gets another kill. That gives me some fantasy points this week. As the Nexus goes down, H2K dominate game 1.
Dominating was almost an understatement. They could not have destroyed Roccat any harder.
Where is Prolly? I really hope we can see his reaction at some point. That man is very rarely a happy man. But today, he should be for that game.
I mean, he actually always smiles. Could be a fake smile, but it's always a massive smile on his face.
I think there's maliciousness in that smile sometimes.
Potentially. I also have everyone know that Febiven did not get his 100% kill participation.
Oh, so Nuclear, did he ruin it?
Nuclear walked down and killed Betsy on this last push here, and then suddenly we actually had 13 kills for H2K. I believe there was one other kill as well that Febi was part of. That was a Phaxi kill by Odoamne. So everyone on H2K got together and said, we want to ruin this 100% kill participation.
Yeah, look at screen at the moment. You know, H2K backstage, pretty big smiles. Jankos, quite a focused look, but in the Roccat camp, Freddy and Grabs. Look, there's a lot to talk about, but the truth is just H2K outplayed Roccat, right? Like,
yep.
They showed up, they had a game plan, and
I mean,
they executed it.
We also said this in the draft, like, I really feel like H2K got such a good setup here. Hindsight 2020, easier to say now as well, but I think with the Zac first pick, and then when you get a bot lane that can just farm against, of course, an Alistar lane that's never going to kill you, there's just nowhere for Roccat to really pressure.
There's one thing getting a plan, there's another thing executing it. H2K off to a great start with flawless execution. Let's get some thoughts from Analyst on how they won.
Thank you very much. I mean, it's true. In the end, hindsight is 2020, but if you see a champion that has been banned 62 times before this game, I think we're going to go to 63 in the next game, but I will also not want to take anything away from the way H2K snowballed their lead. And to be honest, that was the question we asked ourselves. Can H2K exert the pressure that we know and love them for? The answer was yes in this game.
Right, it was the question for both junglers, and we started with Pridestalker seemingly stepping up to the plate first to gank in mid lane. He was being active. effective, successful flash for Flash, but it all goes wrong when he tries to do the same again. No flash for Pridestalker this time and goes aggressive under the tower. They can't lock down Odoamne, and unfortunately Pridestalker ends up sticking around too long and Jankos picks up the kill. This is the early game impact that we wanted to see. Jankos was doing a great job of counter-ganking where Pridestalker was going from this moment onwards.
Yeah, I would say, because this, of course, we need to take it with a grain of salt because he was just clearing his own camp. He saw that Pridestalker was up there, so he went to get the kill, but all credit to Jankos after that. Mid lane was his priority.
Yeah, and speaking of priority, jungle priority for Jankos, 50%. That is insane for a jungler. That is half of his time spent between 2 and 15 minutes was around the rest of his laners. He spent so much time ganking for Febiven and just constantly getting kills on Betsy.
That he did, and it was important because Betsy, we looked at, you know, if he's on Corki, if he gets to scale a bit here and there, that could be an in for Roccat, but even that was not a possibility for Roccat. And then Betsy also, in your mind, shouldn't have built a Hexdrinker early, or? So
it's not shouldn't. Hexdrinker is a necessary purchase for Corki against Syndra. You basically die if you don't have it. The problem is when you follow it up with Mercury Treads, you've just invested 2,500 gold on not dying against the champion.
Well, he was dying a lot, Stress.
That is still killing you. And if you can't be successful investing that amount of gold, then that Corki is never going to scale into the game. And that's one of the problems with this Corki that we've seen exposed is if the jungler comes mid with like a Syndra or a LeBlanc, you get kills, you snowball, Corki never gets into the game.
Corki didn't get into the game, and H2K pushed their snowball out very, very correctly. Obviously, Jankos, a lot of visits to mid, so your Syndra is getting fed, and then they just keep moving around the map, and honestly, they could have gone anywhere, I think, at this point, and gotten a kill. Yeah,
and it was bot lane was the focus. 15 minutes into the game, H2K say, okay, we're strong enough to fight this. They catch out Wadid, and he ends up denying some of the engage from Jankos at first, which is nice. Good, like, combo out of Wadid. His Alistar wasn't too bad for an Alistar overall, but look, H2K is so far ahead that as soon as this team fight locks down Harjan, they just continue going kill after kill, and this is what the next few fights look like for H2K. It was just absolute domination.
That it was. If Jankos doesn't get that early kill, because Pridestalker doesn't complete the early gank and he can kill him, how far does H2K get ahead? Or is it not even worth talking about that?
I wouldn't say it's not worth talking about. I don't think the first kill set up the entire game. I think Jankos on this Zac would have had the impact around the mid lane anyway. Zac isn't reliant on these early kills as a jungler. It just makes it easier for him. I think it was the Febiven Jankos synergy punishing Betsy so incredibly hard that made this game out of reach for Roccat.
I can agree with that. We also saw Syndra just going off to the side lane, flashing in and killing absolutely everyone. And that's what we wanted to see from H2K. We asked ourselves the questions after that comeback to Misfits in week 5. How clean can they be after a week of rest? How much of a top team can they show us to be? And if it's against Roccat or anyone else, that's exactly what you want to see.
This is a great start for H2K on that campaign to being one of these top teams. They're probably hungry after Rift Rivals not being on Summoner's Rift playing out. So I'm expecting business as usual and going into game 2 now for H2K. Similar performance, fast game against Roccat. We said that Rockat's only option might be getting that scaling mid laner. I think it's a risk to play it again. They might need to get Betsy on something that isn't quite so comfortable for him like a Syndra.
We'll see what choices they decide to make. H2K are looking to close out the series when they step on stage for game 2 right after this.
H2K and Roccat load up for game number 1.
Oh, Betsy, he needs a blast code.
What a good stun. Flash forward, blast code. This is it! Betsy, you can't do that! Unleash power comes out. Fate's Call comes out from Harjan as well, buys a couple extra seconds. One did force to flash over the wall, but you can't escape the Cataclysm. All right, Roccat looking for their first kill of the game, not going to find it yet. Dominus thrown down by Phaxi, he's forced to run away. A 2-man stun from Febi gives him another kill. Make that a double as Roccat get their 10. As the Nexus goes down, H2K dominate game 1.